Today we're going to be completing our next assignment, which is to create what I like to call our two-point perspective imagined architecture. We're going to learn how to take those very basic blocks or those very basic cubes in perspective and build on them and connect them where we have 20 or more perspective cubes that are all interconnected, creating this sort of fantastical, imaginary piece of architecture. Take those basic concepts that we've learned and learn how to make really complex things with them. To start, we're going to create our horizon line, and for this assignment in your sketchbook, you can choose where you want that horizon line to be. Remember, it's going to show either you can have a low perspective, a normal mid-range perspective, or a very high up perspective. So if you want to be like looking down on something, I would have a high level. If you want to be looking up at something really big, I would have a low one. Or if you want something in the middle, I'd put it in about the center. And very, very lightly, because I'll be erasing all of this later, I'm going to bring my horizon line all the way across. And as far to the edge as I can, I'm going to give myself my 2 vanishing points right there near the edge. Now to start, I'm just going to draw a basic cube, but I'm not going to make it transparent. This can be any size and any location that you want. Just a simple basic block. I haven't added any of the transparent stuff on the inside, just those 3 faces that we can see. One thing that I've done this time is notice I have not extended my lines all the way to the vanishing point. You can begin doing that as well, where you just take a line a little ways, but then don't connect it all the way to the vanishing point. That can sort of speed you up and give you less things that you have to erase later. Now that we have our basic cube, there are going to be 2 main concepts that I want to teach you. And the first one is how to add windows or anything that is going to lay flat against a wall in perspective. The second thing I'm going to teach you is how to create an extension where something is coming out away from a wall in perspective. So those 2 key ideas are really simple, but once you start adding and building them together, it can get really complex. So for that first one, adding windows or things that are flat against a wall in perspective. If I take this right-hand wall, notice that it is, if you look at the bottom and the top of it, that plane is diminishing to the right vanishing point. So if I want a window to be against this wall, it's going to be laying flat against it, so it's going to be going to the same vanishing point. I can start with a vertical line. Pay very close attention to whether or not your verticals are true verticals. It will really throw off your whole drawing if any of these verticals start to lean or tip in any direction. One trick that I like to do is whenever I'm comparing, I always compare my ruler to the edge of my paper just to make sure that it feels like it stays parallel all the way up through there, just to help me with that. So wherever I want that front edge of the window to start, and then since it's against the right wall going to the right vanishing point, I can take it to the top and bottom to the right vanishing point. Now notice I'm not going to extend it all the way just to give me less to erase, and then I can decide where I want to cut that off in the back with another vertical. And I've just made a flat window. That's trick number 1. The second trick is going to be to add extensions, things that are coming out away from a wall rather than laying flat against them. So I'm going to draw an example of that on this left-hand wall. Notice this left wall, the top and bottom of it, are diminishing to my left vanishing point. So I'm going to start with the same vertical towards the front edge, and I can make this as large as I want. And now, instead of going to the same vanishing point, that would be a window, I'm going to instead extend it from the opposite vanishing point. So this bottom corner, I'm going to extend it forward from my right vanishing point, and this top, I'm going to extend it forward, and then I can extend that however far forward I want, and then I'm going to trim it off with a vertical to end that plane, and then erase anything extra. Now, inside of that plane, if we visualize this is a wall now coming out from our first cube, I'm going to erase anything, any part of this box, of that first box that's on the inside. That way we get a sense that this wall is now solid and opaque, and we can't see the box back behind it. Now, if I visualize this new extension, this is basically just one side of a new box. So I'm going to show you how to take that and turn it into a fully three-dimensional box. I'm going to take these three corners and extend them to my left vanishing point. I'm going to start with where it attaches with this corner here, because as it goes to that left vanishing point, I don't want to extend it beyond where it runs off the side of this building. Now, if you can visualize this, this front vertical becomes that front center vertical of a new cube. And now I'm going to simply finish the top and the left-hand walls. But instead of starting cutting it off with a vertical here, I'm going to start back here where it connects to my very first cube, because I want to make sure it doesn't go off that wall there. So wherever I've ended this line, I'm going to connect it to my right vanishing point and extend that forward. That way, this extension then tells me where to drop in my vertical. Now I can erase anything extra that I have. So if you followed along with me, you can now see you have an example of a window and an extension. Those are our two main rules. Now I'm going to show you how to start taking those same ideas and building and building and building, making this imagined piece of architecture more complex as we go. Perhaps I want to create another extension coming out of this face of this new cube. I can do that. I can start with a vertical. And then since this is a right wall going to the right vanishing point, if I want it to extend out, I'm going to extend it from the opposite vanishing point. And cut the front off with a vertical. Now I have the left side of a new cube, so now I'm going to finish that cube out and make the top and the right hand side. I'm going to take my corners to the right vanishing point. So now I have the top and the front side started. I'm sorry, the right side started. So now where I have that line ending, and where that hits, I will drop in a vertical. Again, making sure it's a true vertical, comparing it to the edge of my paper. And now I can erase anything on the inside that would be blocked out by this view. Now on this cube, maybe I want to add another window here onto this left wall. So since this is a left wall, it's going to the left vanishing point. A window will go to the same vanishing point. So I'll start with a vertical, take it to the left vanishing point, and cut it off with the vertical at the back. If I don't want to do one large window, I can create a series of windows. There again, on a left wall, the left wall goes to the left vanishing point, so those windows can go to the same. Now I can cut all three of those windows off with the same vertical, ensuring that they all go back the same distance and space. Now I have a series of 3 windows. Now with a drawing like this, you can see how it starts to very, very quickly get pretty complex. I've got 3 basic blocks and a series of 3 sets of windows. I'm going to count these as one set of windows since they all are lined up with the same verticals going to that vanishing point. Now there are some more complex things that you can do. I could think of having these windows not just be flat windows, but I could imagine those as being cutouts that would allow you to see inside of this box. So to show you how to do that, if I visualize removing that window so I can see inside this building, this corner, if I take it to the opposite vanishing point, it now looks like on the inside of this block I have a floor and an interior left wall, and then I can do that with those other 2 windows as well. Floor and a wall, floor and a wall. And now it looks like this building has large cutouts cut out from the interior of it. I could even do the same thing with all of these if I wanted to. This corner can go back. And then this window, since it's going to the right vanishing point, I can take this corner and go to the left. Now, this window is a really good example of sort of having to problem solve. The transparent part of the cubes that we have not been drawing, if you remember all those dotted lines, sometimes that's going to come into play and be helpful. If I'm adding this as a cutout, where I can see the floor and the inside wall of this cube, this line technically can't continue and extend all the way over to there because this back center corner should have a vertical dotted line that would extend down. So from this back corner, that vertical dotted line would be disappearing here, but then it would actually show up right through there. That tells me where I have to stop this line where it runs into this one. Now when it hits this corner, I'm then going to be able to see and extend from the right vanishing point that forward moving line. And now, sort of like the bookshelves that we drew, now I can see the floor, the interior right wall, and the interior left wall built up within that building because I know where those dotted lines would come through. There are some other really interesting things that you can do with this project as well. You can create, notice I have a lot of nice flat open tops on mine. You can create extensions that come out of the top of a building or the bottom of a building if you want. So let's say, for example, I want to have a very tall, skinny pillar, maybe going from the top of this building up and then connecting to another block somewhere much higher up. I can start that off just like any normal cube with a vertical. Maybe I want it to start about there. And then I can decide how wide I want that column to be. And I don't want it to go off of the top plane, so I'm going to only extend it to there so that way it doesn't go past that edge. And then just like a normal cube, I'm going to cut those edges, cut those ends off with a vertical. Now I should be able to see a little bit of the top of this. It's still below my horizon line or my eye level. So I can crisscross those corners. To there. So that would be one way that I could have an extension coming out of the top plane of an object. Now let's say I want to have that connect to another building that's going to sit on top. Maybe I want this to be a really large, flat, skinny, wide section. I may have this overlap and start with a vertical there. Extend it. And cut off the edges. Now anything that fits within this, I'm going to erase. This way, it gives the appearance that this column comes up and then this part is stacked on top of it. Now notice where I've placed this in reference to my vanishing point. It's overlapping, so I can't see the top or the bottom of this new shape. But if I had this lowered, I would be able to crisscross my two outside corners and see the top plane of it. But just from where I've happened to place that, I can't see that. Perhaps I want to create cutouts, very long, skinny cutouts on these two walls to make them a little bit more interesting, and almost make this like a hollow shape. Created a window. It's a left wall going to the left vanishing point, therefore my window will go to the same vanishing points. And I'll do the same thing on the right side. So now I have a window on the left and right side. Now if I want to make these windows, I could leave them like this and just have those windows be complete. Or if I want to view those as being cutouts, looking inside of that building where it's like a big hollow open cube, basically, I can take my outside corners, and if you remember, we would crisscross those to the opposite vanishing point with dotted lines. And I'm going to do that this time, but where those corners show up inside of the window, I'm actually going to fill in and draw to the opposite vanishing point. Now I do the same thing from this outside corner to the left vanishing point. It'll be a dotted line, but once it hits that window opening, they would extend, and it looks like those two lines are going to meet somewhere behind this front vertical column. So I'll erase that extra. Then I can also do the same thing for my top two corners.